The richest country on Earth is one most people couldn't even find on a map. The United States, the biggest economy in the history of the world, doesn't even crack the top 5. And nearly every single nation on this list is smaller than one American city. Here's the truth that surprises almost everyone. When you stop measuring the size of an economy and start measuring how rich each person actually is, the giants completely vanish, and a handful of tiny, clever nations quietly dominate the entire planet. Some got here through oil buried under the sea, some through banking secrets and clever tax laws, and some through nothing but brains, discipline, and raw ambition. A few of them you'll instantly recognize. Others you may never have heard of in your life. Using the very latest figures from the IMF, here are the top 10 wealthiest countries in the world. Kicking us off at number 10, Macao. Now, you might not think of it as a country at all, and technically it's a special administrative region of China, once a Portuguese colony handed back only a couple of decades ago, but its wealth is absolutely staggering. Macao is the undisputed gambling capital of the world, a dazzling strip of neon casinos that rakes in several times more money than Las Vegas. Towering resorts line its streets, high rollers pour in from across mainland China and Asia, and the sheer volume of cash flowing through this tiny peninsula is almost impossible to picture. And here's the key to this entire list. Because so few people share such an enormous mountain of money, the wealth per person rockets sky high. Interestingly, gambling is so central to Macao that it's often described as the beating heart of its entire economy, which also makes it unusually vulnerable, rising and falling with the fortunes of its casino floors. But when the money is flowing, few places on Earth generate cash this fast. It's living proof that sometimes a small city built on the roll of the dice can out-earn entire nations many times its size. At number 9, Denmark. Welcome to the famous Scandinavian model of wealth, where taxes are among the highest on the planet, but so is the quality of life. Danes enjoy free healthcare, nearly free education, strong worker protections, and a social safety net most of the world can only dream of. And the economy paying for all of it is a quiet powerhouse. Denmark is home to the largest shipping company on Earth, moving a huge slice of global trade across the oceans. It's also home to the pharmaceutical giant now making the blockbuster weight loss drugs the entire world is obsessed with. A company that has pumped so much money into Denmark it single-handedly boosted the national economy. Add in world-leading wind power and the little plastic building bricks loved by children everywhere, and you get a nation that is green, innovative, and consistently ranked among the happiest places in existence. There's even a Danish word, hygge, for the cozy contentment of a secure and comfortable life. What's fascinating is that despite paying some of the heaviest taxes anywhere, Danes consistently say they're happy to do it, trusting that the money buys them security, free hospitals, and a society where almost no one falls through the cracks. It's a completely different philosophy of wealth from the American dream, and it clearly works. Denmark proves you really can be rich and content at the very same time. Now a genuine shock at number 8, the United States. Yes, the country with the single largest economy in human history only ranks 8th when you measure wealth per person. Its total economic power is simply unmatched, a colossal engine driven by Silicon Valley's tech empires, Wall Street's financial might, Hollywood's global reach, and the US dollar itself, the currency the entire world depends on. America generates more total wealth than any nation that has ever existed. But here's the catch. You have to spread that staggering fortune across more than 340 million people. And wealth inside the US is famously uneven, with enormous gaps between the ultra-rich and everyone else. So while the average American is still incredibly wealthy by global standards, the country slides down to 8th on this particular list. The lesson is powerful, and it defines this entire countdown. It's a reminder that these two things, total power and personal wealth, are not the same at all. A country can tower over the world stage and still trail a tiny microstate when you zoom all the way into the individual. Being the biggest economy on Earth does not automatically make you the richest per citizen. At number 7, Norway, and this is a country that got rich the smart way. Decades ago, Norway struck it big with vast reserves of oil and gas hidden beneath the North Sea, becoming one of Europe's most important energy suppliers almost overnight. But here's where Norway did something most nations never manage. Instead of blowing the windfall, it saved it. The Norwegians built the single largest sovereign wealth fund on the entire planet, a national savings account worth well over $1.5 trillion. That fund is so gigantic that on paper, it owns more than 1% of every publicly listed company in the world, making the people of Norway part owners of the global economy itself. And they treat it with incredible discipline, spending only a small slice of the returns each year so the fortune keeps growing. The fund is often described as belonging to every Norwegian citizen, making each of them, in a sense, a millionaire on paper before they're even born. And because the country invested rather than splurged, it's protected from the day the oil eventually runs out. While other oil-rich nations spent wildly and later crashed, Norway didn't just get rich, it got rich for generations still to come. Halfway home, at number 6, Singapore. And this might be the most inspiring story on the whole list. Rewind to the 1960s, and Singapore was a poor, struggling port with no oil, no minerals, barely any land, and so little water it had to import it from a neighbor. By almost every measure, it had nothing. Today, it stands as one of the wealthiest, cleanest, and most advanced places on Earth, a gleaming global hub for finance, shipping, and technology. How? Through relentless planning, a fanatical focus on education, strict laws, and sheer ambition. In a single generation, visionary leadership dragged this tiny island from the third world to the first, without a drop of oil in the ground. Today, its airport is regularly voted the best in the world, its port is one of the busiest on the planet, and its streets are famously spotless, kept that way by strict rules and steep fines. The whole country runs almost like a finely tuned machine. Singapore is undeniable proof that brains, discipline, and good decisions can beat raw natural resources every single time. At number 5, Iceland. Picture a remote volcanic island near the Arctic Circle, with a population smaller than many mid-sized cities, yet ranking among the richest nations alive. Iceland's secret starts underground. The island sits on a hotbed of volcanic energy, so it runs almost entirely on clean, renewable power drawn from geothermal heat and rushing waterfalls, giving its homes and industries some of the cheapest green energy anywhere. On top of that, a massive tourism boom has drawn millions of visitors chasing its glaciers, geysers, and northern lights, while a proud fishing tradition still feeds the economy. And with only a few 100,000 people to share all that wealth, the numbers per person soar. Most remarkable of all, Iceland suffered one of the worst banking collapses in modern history back in 2008 and then clawed its way back to become richer than ever, a comeback most countries could only dream of. It's also one of the safest and most equal societies on Earth, with tight-knit communities where almost everyone is connected. For a nation that sits alone in the freezing North Atlantic, battered by wind and volcanoes, its prosperity is genuinely remarkable. This little island of fire and ice punches astonishingly far above its weight. Cracking the top 5 at number 4, Switzerland. When most people picture pure wealth, this is the image that comes to mind. Switzerland is the land of famously secretive private banks, precision luxury watches, world-class chocolate, and some of the most powerful pharmaceutical companies on the planet. Its banks have quietly guarded the fortunes of the world's wealthy for generations, and its corporations dominate everything from life-saving medicines to the food on supermarket shelves worldwide. And it pulled all of this off as a small, mountainous, landlocked country with almost no natural resources. The real secret ingredient is stability. For over 2 centuries, Switzerland has stayed fiercely neutral, calm, and safe, while the rest of the world went to war around it. That made it the ultimate safe haven for the planet's money. Wages there are among the highest anywhere, though so is the cost of living, with everyday prices that can shock even wealthy visitors. But behind the postcard mountains and pristine lakes sits one of the most sophisticated economies humanity has ever built. Clean, precise, and quietly powerful, Switzerland turns stability itself into one of the most valuable exports on Earth. Now the surprises truly intensify. At number 3, Ireland. And this one stuns people because not so long ago Ireland was one of Western Europe's poorer countries, a land better known for emigration and hardship than for riches. Today, it sits near the very top of the world, and there's a very clever reason why. Ireland offered rock-bottom tax rates to the world's biggest corporations, and so the giants of tech and pharmaceuticals, household names you use every single day, set up their official European headquarters there. The enormous profits of those global titans now flow directly through Ireland's economy, rocketing its wealth per person figure into the stratosphere. But here's the honest catch, and it's caused real controversy. Critics argue those numbers make Ireland look far richer on paper than the average person actually feels in daily life, since so much of that money belongs to foreign companies just passing through. Still, the jobs, the taxes, and the investment those giants brought have genuinely transformed the nation from struggling to soaring. Economists even had to invent a new, more honest way of measuring the Irish economy to strip out all the foreign corporate money and see how ordinary people are really doing. Whatever you make of the numbers, the transformation in a single generation, from one of Europe's poorest corners to one of its richest is astonishing. It's a modern wealth story quite unlike any other on this list. The runner-up, at number 2, Luxembourg. Most people can barely find it on a map, yet this is one of the richest countries on the entire planet. Tucked away between France, Germany, and Belgium, Luxembourg is a tiny financial titan, home to a colossal banking and investment fund industry that quietly manages trillions of dollars, second only to the United States as a global fund center. It's also a founding cornerstone of the European Union, hosting major institutions that hand this little country enormous influence on the world stage, far beyond what its size should allow. And it's so small that a huge share of its daily workforce doesn't even live there, commuting in every morning across the borders from 3 neighboring countries. It's also one of the most international places on Earth, where people routinely switch between several languages in a single conversation, and where a huge portion of residents were born in another country entirely. This blend of finance, politics, and openness gives it a global weight that dwarfs its physical size. With a population smaller than many single cities and a genuine mountain of money, Luxembourg has turned the business of finance into pure gold. And now, the number 1 wealthiest country in the entire world, and honestly, most people have never even heard of it. It's Liechtenstein. This is a microstate tucked high in the Alps between Switzerland and Austria, with fewer than 40,000 people, roughly the size of a small town. Yet it boasts the highest wealth per person anywhere on the globe. So how does a place this tiny top the entire planet? Liechtenstein is a surprising powerhouse of high-end, precision manufacturing and discreet private wealth management, quietly serving the fortunes of the world's rich. It is so business-friendly that it reportedly has more registered companies than it has citizens. It's a fairy tale country still ruled by a prince from a castle on a hill, so small it doesn't even have its own airport. And it's one of only 2 countries on Earth completely landlocked by other landlocked countries. Much of its workforce, like Luxembourg's, commutes in from abroad, which helps push those already jaw-dropping numbers even higher. It doesn't even use its own currency, borrowing its neighbors' money and sharing its border controls. Yet it has quietly become wealthier per head than any oil kingdom or superpower. It's the ultimate example of this entire video, that in the strange math of national wealth, the smallest players can end up on top of the world. The single richest nation on the planet, per person, is a place most people never think about and couldn't point to if they tried. So there you have it, the 10 wealthiest countries in the world. And did you catch the pattern hiding in plain sight? Not one of them is a giant. They're tiny nations, remote islands, and Alpine microstates powered by oil, banking, brainpower, or a bit of very clever tax policy, while economic titans like the United States, China, Germany, and Japan get left in the dust the moment you measure wealth per person. It turns out the real secret to national wealth was never about being big. It's about being small, being smart, and being in exactly the right business at exactly the right time. From casinos to sovereign wealth funds, from oil rigs to private banks, from volcanic islands to alpine castles, each of these nations found its own unlikely path to the very top. And nearly all of them share one quiet advantage: a small population that lets their wealth stretch incredibly far per person. If this surprised you, hit subscribe, because we break down the world exactly like this every single week. And tell me in the comments, which of these countries shocked you the most, and did your own country come anywhere close? I read every single one. And to see the top 10 countries with the best food on Earth, click the video on your screen right now.